I think one of the hardest parts of starting over in midlife is that you're not starting with a completely blank slate. You're bringing everything that's happened to you with you. The wins, the failures, the disappointments, the things that you prayed for that didn't happen, the things that you thought your life would look like by now that they just don't. And sometimes without even realizing it, those experiences start to make us scared to dream as big as we used to. Because when we're younger, I think there's this innocence around dreaming. We think, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna have this kind of life, I'm gonna achieve all of these things. And then life happens. And now we're dreaming with evidence. We have this evidence that sometimes relationships don't work out the way that we thought that they would. We have this evidence that people can sometimes disappoint us. We have this evidence that you can work really, really hard and give something all you have and it still doesn't work out. You have this evidence that you can pray for something and not get the answer that you wanted. So how do we dream again after all of that? How do we allow ourselves to get excited about our future when we've lived enough life to know that things don't always go according to plan? And that's what I've been thinking about this week. So, welcome to week 3 of my 120-day challenge to 40. So if you've been following along, I'm basically using this 120 days to intentionally rebuild different areas of my life, from my relationship with God to my health, my consistency, my content, my business, and honestly just figuring out who I want to become in this next chapter of life. And this week I've been thinking a lot about dreams, because I think it's really easy to talk about having faith when everything is going really, really well, but it's a lot harder to keep believing, to keep showing up, to keep expecting good things when you've already experienced this deep, heart-wrenching disappointment. And I've had enough life happen to myself by now to know that things don't always work out the way that we think that they're going to. I lost my dad in my mid-20s. I've experienced betrayal in my relationships. I've had my self-esteem completely crumble, and I've had to figure out how to rebuild it almost from nothing. Then I became a mother, which has been one of the greatest blessings of my life. But also, motherhood comes with this huge shift in your identity. Suddenly, my time is not completely my own anymore. My body isn't completely my own. My decisions aren't just about me. There's this loss of autonomy that I don't think I fully understood until I experienced it. And then on top of that, we moved continents actually, and we moved our family to Southeast Asia. And that's been an incredible blessing in so many different ways, but it's also stretched me in ways I never expected. So when I talk about rebuilding, I'm not talking about this from a place of having every single thing figured out. I'm literally rebuilding in real time. And today I want to have this real honest conversation about how I'm learning to dream again, how I'm learning to trust God again, and keep taking steps even when I don't know how the story is even going to end. So what has disappointment taught me about dreaming? I think that when I was younger, I had a very different idea of how life worked. I thought that you work hard, you do the right things, you pray, you have faith, and somehow everything is supposed to work out. And then you live a little bit longer and you eventually realize that not everything goes as you intend. You can do the right thing and still experience something really painful. You can work incredibly hard at a business and still watch it struggle. You can love somebody and still be hurt by them. You can pray for something with everything in you and still not receive the answer that you wanted. And I think one of the things disappointment can do if we're not careful is it can make us afraid to expect anything. We become cautious. We tell ourselves, you're just being realistic. We stop getting too excited about things because somewhere inside we're thinking, well, let's just see what happens. And that describes me right now to a T. I think sometimes I've lowered my expectations without even realizing that I was doing it. Because there's safety in not expecting too much. If you don't hope too much, maybe it won't hurt as much if it doesn't happen. If you don't tell anybody about the dream, nobody knows if you fail. If you don't really go for it, you can always tell yourself that maybe you could have done it if you had tried harder. And I think that's where I found myself wrestling with this strange tension. Because on one hand, losing my dad in my mid-20s taught me just how short life can be. When you lose a parent and you're still pretty young, you learn very quickly that tomorrow is not promised. We're constantly told to work and to save and to sacrifice so that one day we can retire and finally live the life that we want. And I understand the wisdom in preparing for your future. I completely do. But I also know that not everyone gets to see 65. Not everyone gets that retirement. Not everyone gets that extra 20 or 30 years they assume that they're going to have. So part of me has this very strong sense of, Nadia, live your life. Go after the dream. Take the trip. Try the thing. Put yourself out there. Stop waiting for some imaginary future version of you who is finally confident enough, wealthy enough, thin enough, pretty enough, successful enough, or ready enough. Because we don't know how much time that we're going to have. But then there's this other part of me that has lived enough life to know that going after the dream doesn't always guarantee that the dream is going to work out. And that's the internal battle. I know that life is short, so I don't want to waste it, but I've also experienced enough disappointment to know that life doesn't always go according to plan. And I think that I'm learning that courage is living somewhere in the middle of those two truths. I'm not entitled to a particular outcome, but I'm also not willing to stop living because I'm afraid of another disappointment. I don't want to reach 40 and decide that the safest thing I can do is make myself smaller. I actually want the opposite. I want to allow myself to dream again, maybe with more wisdom than I had at 20, maybe with more surrender, maybe with a deeper understanding that I cannot control everything. But the thing is, I still want to dream. So I'm asking myself this question: how do I know the difference between faith and trying to control the outcome? This has been a really big one for me. Because if I'm being completely truthful, when I have a vision for something, I don't just want the vision. I want the plan. I want the step 1 through step 25. I want to know how it's going to work out. I want to know when it's going to work. And ideally, I'd also like God to confirm that it's definitely going to work out before I put too much effort into it. But that's not really what faith is it? Because if I already knew exactly how everything was going to turn out, I wouldn't need faith. And something's slowly beginning to click for me about the role that the Holy Spirit has in all of this. I don't necessarily need the whole plan. I need enough discernment to recognize the next step and enough courage to take it. Maybe my job isn't to figure out the entire staircase. Maybe my job is to pay attention to the next step. And then, when I get there, trust God with the one after that. That is what is changing how I approach these 120 days. Because there are so many outcomes I cannot control. I cannot control how many people watch this video. I cannot control how many people subscribe to this channel. I cannot control how many likes or comments I get. I can't control whether my business grows at the speed I want it to. I can't control whether some incredible opportunity comes from sharing this journey or if absolutely nothing comes from it. And if I use those things to decide whether I'm succeeding, I'm gonna drive myself literally bonkers. So instead, I'm trying to measure my output rather than the outcome. Did I show up? Did I make the content? Did I post when I said I would? Did I do things for my body? Did I go for Pilates? Did I go to the gym? Did I make a balanced choice with my food more often than not? Did I stop for 10 minutes and spend time with God? Did I pray? Did I listen? Did I take the step that was actually available to me today? Those are the only things that I can measure and control. And those are all signs that I'm building, even if I can't see exactly what they're building toward yet. So I think that's what faith in action is starting to look like for me. It's not about sitting on my sofa saying, God, I trust you, and then waiting for my dream life to just arrive. It's also not frantically trying to manipulate every outcome because I think that everything depends on me. It's somewhere in between. It's saying, God, I'm going to be faithful with what is in my hands, and I'm going to trust you with what isn't. And that's hard, especially when you're ambitious, especially when you have a vision, especially when you've experienced disappointment before and you desperately want some reassurance that this time it's going to be different, it's going to be better, it's going to be easier. But I'm learning that surrender means that I don't get the guarantee. I just get the next step. So what does it look like to keep going when you aren't getting the results yet? This is where the challenge is becoming very real for me, because we're at week 3. And 3 weeks is this interesting point where the excitement of starting something new is beginning to wear off. It's not brand new anymore, but it's also nowhere near long enough to see the full results of what you're doing. And I think this is where a lot of us just stop. We start exercising, and 3 weeks later we're looking in the mirror thinking, okay, where is the results? Where's the weight loss? We start the business and think, why aren't people buying it? We start posting content and we're refreshing the numbers thinking, hello, is anybody there? We start spending time with God again and expect to suddenly feel completely different. And when the external results don't match the amount of effort we feel like we're putting in, we start questioning the whole thing. Maybe this isn't working. Maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe nobody cares. Maybe I should do something else. But what if 3 weeks isn't the time to evaluate the outcome? What if it's the time to evaluate the habit? That's been a really important shift for me. Instead of asking, has my entire life changed yet? I'm asking, am I becoming someone who can still show up even if I don't feel like it? Because 3 weeks ago, there were things I was thinking about doing, and now I'm actually doing them. I'm making the videos, I'm sharing consistently on Instagram. I'm putting myself online 6 days a week. And let me tell you, some days I do not feel like doing it. There have already been days when I sat down to film, like yesterday, and every sentence coming out of my mouth sounded ridiculous. I was stuttering, I was slurring my words. My voice was cracking, my hair was not cooperating, and I was just tired because I didn't get a lot of sleep. My energy was low, and everything in me was saying, just do it another day. But I made the content and I posted it. Was it the best thing that I could have ever created? Absolutely not. But that's almost beside the point, because I'm starting to understand that the real transformation might not be the content itself. It might be becoming the woman who said she was going to do something and then actually did it. The same goes with Pilates, the same with eating well, the same with my time with God. Every single time I show up, I'm giving myself another piece of evidence. Evidence that I can trust myself. Evidence that I can be consistent. Evidence that one bad day doesn't have to become a bad week. Evidence that I don't have to wait until I feel motivated. And maybe that's the real result right now. Maybe I don't need some huge transformation at week 3. Maybe the transformation is happening quietly in the ordinary decisions that nobody else gets to see. Because last week I talked about this challenge being a marathon rather than a sprint. And I have to keep coming back to that. I'm not trying to become a completely different woman in 18 weeks. I'm practicing becoming someone who can keep showing up for the next 18 years. And that's different. Because if I'm only doing this until December, then December becomes the finish line. But I don't want December to be the finish line. I want to get to my 40th birthday and think, this is how I live now. This is how I show up. This is how I spend time with God. This is how I take care of my body. This is how I create the content. This is how I honor the things that matter to me. This is how I take my dreams super seriously and I keep the promises that I make to myself. And when I do fall off, because obviously I'm going to sometimes, I know how to come back. That's what I actually want from these 120 days. And I think sometimes we're so focused on the big result that we miss the person that we're becoming while we're waiting for it. You might not have the business yet. You might not have the relationship yet. You might not have the financial breakthrough yet. You might not even have an audience yet. You might not have the answer to the prayer yet. But who are you becoming while you wait? Are you becoming more disciplined? Are you becoming more courageous and more honest? Are you becoming more dependent on God? Are you learning to hear His voice? Are you learning to trust yourself again? Are you finally doing the things that you've talked about doing for years? Because all of that counts. I actually think it counts for a lot. So I think that's probably the biggest thing I'm taking away from week 3. I don't know how this story is going to turn out, and that's both terrifying and kind of exciting. And I don't know exactly what my business is going to look like at the end of this 120 days. I don't even know what it's going to look like in a year or 2 from now. I don't know what this channel is going to become. I don't know how many people are going to follow this journey. I don't know what opportunities might come from putting myself out there. And I don't know what parts of the vision I have right now that might eventually change. But I don't want uncertainty to stop me from moving. And I definitely don't want disappointment to determine the size of my dreams. I've already given disappointment enough, so I don't want to give it my future too. So maybe that's what we're doing in this season. We're surrendering control without surrendering the dream. We're accepting that we don't know how or where the story ends, but we're still willing to participate in writing the next chapter. We're not trying to figure out the entire staircase. Lord help us. We're asking God for just enough light for the next step. And then we're going to take it. And maybe tomorrow we'll get another one. So if you're in a season of rebuilding too, I want to leave you with this one question. What is something that you're still hoping for even though you've been disappointed before? Maybe it's something you've barely allowed yourself to admit that you still want for yourself. Maybe it's a dream that you've made so small because the bigger version feels too scary. Maybe it's something you stopped praying about because you got tired of waiting. Whatever it is, I'd love for you to share it in the comments. Not because we're guaranteeing that anything is gonna work out or happen exactly the way that we want, but because I think that sometimes we need to remind ourselves and each other that it's okay to hope again. It's okay to dream again and to build again. And it's okay if you don't know how the story ends yet, because I'm right here with you. I will see you next week because we still have another chapter to build. Bye for now.